Yes, sir. Great.
Uh,
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, friends. Today again we are having an important session with a great chief guest. This chief guest is known to everyone in Tamil Nadu, very popular personality in Tamil Nadu, who has done a lot of transformation in Tamil Nadu, not only in the IT sector but also in various sectors. Wherever he was there, he has made some remark over there. I'm sure definitely always the people of Tamil Nadu will remember Sir's service. Such a great personality is with us today to deliver a session on good governance through technology. And Sir is basically a doctor from Trivandrum, a MBBS doctor transformed into a great personality in the civil services. And very soon, I'm sure definitely Sir is also going to become a great icon in India. I'm sure definitely Sir will reach that destination. I'm sure about it. We are all going to see him. Now I request to read few of Sir achievement and his career growth. I request Madhavi to just read it out. Sir, on behalf of the KingMakers IAS Academy, on behalf of the students of KingMakers IAS Academy, welcome you all, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madhavi?
I think
Great
101.
having you, sir. Yes, sir. That's great having you, sir. So, Santhosh Babu, sir, he has done his medical doctor,
Just read it out. Just read it out if you want to. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and start the session. Madhavi, just read it out. Whatever you have.
Yes, sir. Santhosh Babu is a medical doctor turned Indian Administrative Service Officer of the 1995 batch of the Tamil Nadu cadre. He is an alumnus of the Government Medical College, Trivandrum. He is also a Chernik Gurukul Scholar from the London School of Economics and Political Science and an LKY Fellow and MPM degree holder from the National University of Singapore and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He firmly believes that only leadership embodied in integrity and selflessness with the ability to innovate in the governance process can take India to prosperity. His abiding passion has been to transform governance within his jurisdiction to world-class levels using modern management practices and tools that information technology provides. He has about 250 plus transformational initiatives and innovations to his credit, including installing ERP, driven anytime, anywhere government offices, developing and implementing numerous web-based application softwares, establishing India's first rural business process outsourcing units, etc. He has conceived and edited numerous magazines and websites. A few recognitions have come his way, like the Best Collector Award of the Government of Tamil Nadu for Child Labour Eradication, Dataquest Magazine E-Governance Champion Award South India 2008, being recognized as the Pride of Tamil Nadu by the Indian Express in its annual publication 2007, being recognized by the reputed Tamil magazine Ananda Vigadan as one of the top 10 people in Tamil Nadu in 2008. Or to his credit, he has the best moment as the former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, quoted his work under the heading Committed Leadership in a speech on the occasion of the 7th National Civil Service Day, 21st April 2012 at New Delhi. In August 2019, while serving as the Principal Secretary, Information Technology Department, he has done a major reforms, even contributed to the mygovernance.com in Government of India. Sir, I have lots to read about your credits, sir. It goes more than 2 hours so let's get to the session as soon as possible. Thank you, sir, for having being here, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bhuminathan, and thank you, Ms. Madhavi, for that nice introduction. I am with 134 people here, which means barring the three of us, there should be around 130 plus candidates who have cleared the prelims and the mains and are on the way to the interview boards in UPSC in New Delhi in the next couple of months. So first, let me congratulate all the candidates, all the aspirants. You have passed two major tests. One was an elimination test which was the prelims, and now
Sir, you have structured
the selection test. So you are the chosen few development and change and transformation. Pardon? Yeah, I'm working on the
lag is there. Lag
is there. Yeah, because I'm speaking from my telephone's connection. What we can do is we can switch off our videos, all of your videos, so that at least that bandwidth can be managed.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's better. I have a small PowerPoint presentation. So we are 6:39. I would like to speak till maybe 7:15. Or if you get bored of the speech, you can just tell me. Then we'll have an interactive session because all of you are going for an interview at the UPSC, and some of these questions related to technology, related to anything, can be asked, especially towards technology. You could ask me. If I'm in a position to answer, I would like to definitely answer those questions. So congratulations. God bless. All of you have done hard work, and please use the next 40-45 days to ensure that you're on top of this interview. Because it's, fact checking has already been done, whether you're good in your studies.
Sir, audio is not clear, sir.
So you can switch off. It's all about poise. It's all about how you carry your bits of knowledge here and there. What do I do now? This connection, this telephone connection is all I have right now, because the main connection is somehow not working at this particular point of time. Let me see whether I can.
Video.
Sorry, you can switch off your video.
I'll switch off my video, my own video, but then can I show the presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent.
Yes, sir. I'll make you the host, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you can share the presentation with the
host.
You can share with the host.
How do I share the presentation? Please. This presentation is an old presentation. Host is disabled participant screen sharing.
Yes, sir. You can now share, sir.
It says host disabled participant.
Now you are the host, sir. Now we have changed it, sir.
Okay.
Sir, if you can mail it or WhatsApp it to someone, they can share the screen. Sir. That's
but it's not the full presentation that I can give, because
yes, sir. Now it is.
Yeah, now it's good, sir.
That's not the one. That's not the one. Sorry. Yeah, let me use my spectacles. Yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Yes,
sir.
Okay, now I'll go very quickly on this because you don't need to see all this. So basically, in government, what happens is you deal with people. That's all, right? It's about people management. If you become an IAS officer, all you're doing is people management, and you have an office. But the main problem that happens in offices, that there is something called red tape. All of you have heard about this. Then you're always not on time. Okay. You're not getting the best people in the world. That's what people say. The private sector, they get the best, but the government sector does not get the best, etc. is what people say. Then you're on top of that, you're on telephone calls, you're in meetings, large number of meetings. Then I'm talking about the IAS officer here. When the going is good, the officer is very happy. When most of the times he's angry, sometimes he's clueless, sometimes he's frustrated. But mostly he looks like this, a complete ass. Now, what happens because of your leadership problem is that you get a frustrated employee and you get an unhappy citizen. And these are the two sections of population that you're trying to serve. I mean, when you say that you are becoming an IAS officer, you serve the people through the officers, through your system, right? So both people are unhappy. The unhappy citizen is unhappy, and the system is unhappy. And the panacea is not computerization, right? The panacea is all about leadership. That's where I want to bring my theory of leadership, which is about integrity, innovation, and technology. If you have all three, then you become what is called a transformation leader. Now, I'll take you through my little journey in another 30 minutes, so that it'll be a lot about me, but it will also show what technology can bring, what transformation technology can bring about. So I want you to put that in that context. It's not about me, it's about what you as an IAS officer can do. Or if in an interview you're asked, what are the transformations that have happened in India, you can quote some of these examples, pan-India, which happened because of my work, etc. So if you have integrity, innovation, and technology, which I call IIT of transformation leadership, then we have big transformation, right? Now you look at this picture. I'm just trying to motivate you. This picture is of a country which is one of the most mafia-ridden countries in the world. And can anybody guess which country it is? Nobody can guess it, right? This was how Singapore looked like in the 1940s. And today, because of Lee Kuan Yew, the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew, we have Singapore what it is today. So that's kind of transformation that has happened the last 80, 90 years. And India also went through this, but we are not attained that level of development. And that's mainly to do with leadership. And I want you to become leaders who think about the country first. So country first could be your, your credo, because that's what is not happening today. It's country last, right? So I will take you through what I did in Pumpuhar, which is the Tamil Nadu Handicrafts Development Corporation. So many of you will be posted when you become an IAS officer, sub-collector, etc., etc., etc. Later on, you become an HOD. So I went to Harvard and came back, and I thought I'll be put in Chennai Corporation as a Chennai Corporation Commissioner. I wanted to make the world-class society as corporation. But then I was put in a place called Pumpuhar, which is a Handicrafts Development Corporation. It's a punishment post. Now, nobody does any activity in this in the last 45 years of its existence. Nobody has contributed much, except that some buildings have been constructed, some activities happening, and the brand was quite famous. This brand called Pumpuhar was very famous, on top of which I could actually, piggy ride and bring about changes. So I'll just take you through, it was doing routine work like, production of lamps, etc., 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 a few things. If you go to the office, it was looking really bad. So we did a major transformation here, and this won the National E-Governance Award in 2017-18. So that's where I want you to appreciate. I think somebody's mic is on and it's making a lot of noise. Yeah, you could put your mics on mute so that I can take you through this.
Yes,
yeah. So, in Pumpuhar, what we did was, so this is what you as an officer, when you get inside, should do. And you as an aspirant, as you go into the interview board, should think about. This is an organization which is a punishment post, which is defunct, etc. But what we did was, we took administration, marketing, production, and design. These are the 4 pillars, and made huge changes in these 4 pillars. So there was no website. We introduced a website. Now it's called pumpuhar.com. We made the entire, the governance was through files. So I had 24 locations throughout the country: Calcutta, Delhi, Bangalore, and then the Tamil Nadu itself. 24 locations, 12 showrooms, and 7, production, etc., production sites, etc. And let's say my client in Calcutta says he wants a particular Ganesha. Now, what my manager will do in that particular showroom, she will write to me. She'll send it through Tapal. It will come to me. And by the time I take a production or a procurement decision, it'll be around 40 days. That's what's the average number of days that we took. We brought it under 40 minutes because we use this Office ERP, which is an enterprise resource planning software. You don't need to remember this. You can call it a paperless office. Now, paperless office softwares are being used in Government of India, but it's being used on the whims and fancies of offices. It's not being used across. So just imagine, you're going, somebody is coming to your office and giving you a petition. Now, what happens to this petition is it will go into a tapal. The tapal will get a seal. It will get a distribution number. It will get another number. It will go into a file of a clerk, and it moves up in the hierarchy. And by the time a decision is taken, it's 30 to 40 days. This is my average calculation. And imagine somebody with a grievance, wants to settle the grievance in the next few hours or few days. If you're taking 40, 50 days, the whole purpose is lost. Now, that's where e-governance can come in through paperless government offices. This was done as I created the first paperless office in Tamil Nadu in 2001 in the Tamil Nadu Corporation for Development of Women. But I have not seen this happening across the state. So we issued a government order when I was the Principal Secretary IT last year. and for making the whole state paperless in terms of file movement. So if files can, so the heart of governance is files. Okay, so you should understand that the Bible is the file. Now, who carries a file? It is the peon. Peon should be carrying the paper, or he should be carrying tea, coffee, or Xerox, taking a Xerox, etc. But what happens is that the Bible of governance, which is called the paper, the file, is carried by the peon. That's one of the reasons why the files get delayed. You know, if you pay the peon a bribe, he might take the lowest file up. And you know, all these are possible. So then we introduce, you know, the organization people are not coming on time. Oh, 1 second. Oh, sorry. So people are not coming on time. Why this no? Oh, we introduce e-attendance. We introduce e-monitoring. You know, the 24 locations in the country. There were a lot of things that were being pilfered. You know, my small item in my office, in my showroom, it costs around 20,000 rupees, a lamp or idle. So we were writing off 20-25 lakhs every year, and I don't know why this is not working right now. No, it's not working. So we introduced e-monitoring, put CCTV across the place, and you know, it is centrally monitored. E-reviews, we used iPads for review. E-accounting, Tally was introduced. I'm just talking about a small organization. And on this side, on the marketing side, we introduced e-billing. We introduced e-repository. I want to show you all that, but I know somehow it's not working. Then we introduced e-commerce. So e-commerce was started in 2014. We were one of the first in the country to start e-commerce for artisans. We used our own e-commerce site, pumpuhar.com, and we also brought in Flipkart, Amazon, everybody in. Then we also had smartphone apps, e-commerce, virtual reality. We brought in, I'll explain a little about virtual reality. And we, in the production side, in the designing side, we brought 3D designing and printing, which is called additive manufacturing. Now, if we are asked a question on additive manufacturing, I'm sure 100% sure it will not be asked. But you can say, you know, when we talk about the emerging technologies, there's something called additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. And many of you are engineers, you'll know that. We use 3D printing and virtual reality in a very interesting way. Maybe I'll show you as a video. Then we brought in around 20 crores worth of modern machinery from the Government of India funds, etc. So on all aspects, we brought in changes. The whole idea was to delight administration, delight marketing, delight all my customers, employees, business, etc. So if you look at this, you know, e-accounting, somehow it's not opening. Oh my God. Again, that's not opening. This should have been opening, and this should have been opening e-monitoring. So we are talking about technology and it's not working. Look at the, maybe because of the phone connection, I don't know. All this, so all this, see, e-repository of artisans, we brought around 20,000 artisans out of the 70,000, sorry, 30,000 into an e-repository so that they can sell to the whole world, you know. So all these things, and somehow I'm not able to open all this. I'm sorry for this. Now, what happened because of all this?
We can see in the government website, sir. That is a great, sir. You have already contributed to the government website, which is already held in our government website. We can look at it.
No, I'm not able to hear you.
No, sir. It's already there in the government website, sir.
Okay,
so,
okay, fine. I'm just going ahead and
already,
I'm just showing you that the impact of all this, you know, this is a virtual reality. The impact of all this, and you know, designing the airports, we designed there around 8 airports. Now, because the impact of all this is that the sales went up the roof. You know, from for 30-40 years, it was around 30 crores. In 2 years, it went up to around 70 crores as turnover. Now, this is what technology can do to you. So if you are asked questions on what technology can do to you, this is what I would say. That is, even in a small organization in government, you can introduce small things. You know, what is happening across the country is people are using the computer like a typewriter, which means typing out letters, which means, you know, using Excel sheets, etc. That's not the purpose. That is also the purpose. But that's a very low end purpose. The higher purpose is to use an application software to change things in governance. So this is only governance that I'm talking about. Okay. One of the major things that we did when I was the principal secretary IT was to talk about emerging technologies. So that is an area where you need to read a bit. Now, what are the emerging technologies? One is blockchain. Second is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Third is Internet of Things. Fourth is drones. Fifth is so these are the emerging technologies. I'm just reading it out. So the blockchain. Suppose a question is asked about blockchain or about bitcoins. I'm sure you should be ready with that. We could answer those questions in the question answer session. But I'm sure all of you are reading about this. I recently had an interview with a boy, and he's from an arts background. But let me tell you, he answered this very beautifully. So one is fintech is a huge area that's coming up. Financial, for example, your UPI, Universal Payment Interface, is a fintech model, right? Then e-office, blockchain. They've introduced something called state family database, something on predictive governance. If you ask me a question on that, we'll explain that. Then the biggest problem that India is facing today is connectivity. So because of the pandemic, what is happening is everything is work from home, except government possibly. Even government is working from home. So students are studying from home, teachers are teaching from home, etc. So one of the biggest problems is bandwidth. And that has been sought to be resolved through what is called a BharatNet project. So BharatNet provides something like 2,000 to 5,000 crores of rupees to each state to put up thousands of kilometers of optical fiber network to reach right up to the village panchayats. And from the village panchayat, they can give the connections right up to the homes. In fact, in Telangana, they have a huge network of pipes for water. And this pipe is supposed to reach each home. And along with the pipe, they are bringing the internet cable also. So they have reached much ahead. And in Tamil Nadu, possibly we are taking up to the panchayat level. And from there, we are asking our cable TV operators to take it as a business model and take it to homes. Now, this is a huge area. And if you please read up about BharatNet also. And if you ask me about predictive governance, I'll answer a bit later. And then there's something called a cyber security architecture. We can talk about it. The central government has got something called a CERT-in, Cyber Emergency Response Team. Okay. And even if a computer within the network of government of India or within the state government is infected, you will get, for example, I got a message in the morning from certain saying that in this particular taluk office in Tirunelveli, this particular computer with this IP number is affected by a ransomware. And can you believe it? I talked to the collector and collector said, how do you know? I said, this is an advisory from CERT-in, Cyber Emergency Response Team. And then they checked it up, and NIC went to check it up, and it was true. So that's the level of, cyber security that the government of India is doing. Now, for the other states, that's for the state governments, we are having what's called a cyber security CERT Tamil Nadu, CERT Andhra, CERT Telangana, etc. Happening. So this is one of the areas that I'm looking for my pen. I know where it's gone. Okay. So all these states have been given money by the central government and by the state governments. And Tamil Nadu was one of the states which took up around 21 crores of rupees to establish what's called CERT-TN, SOC-TN, that is Security Operations Center TN, Security Architecture Framework TN, SAF-TN. Then there's a CCMP, Cyber Security Management Plan TN, etc. So all these are being taken up by different state governments in their own ways. And obviously, we are also having a surge of startups, etc., at the cutting edge, trying to give you products and patents, okay, to the different governments. So that's all I'll talk about right now, and then we could, talk a little about the subjects that Madhavi gave me in the morning, which can be asked as questions. Are you with me, boys and girls?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, please explain predictive governance, sir. One question. Sir, second question is, we spoke about around 5 emerging technologies, sir, that will have large-scale impact.
That's right.
So each of this technology, if you can explain one application that could be a low-hanging fruit. Yeah. For example, additive manufacturing can be used in sustainable and affordable housing. That is a low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
So each one, if you can explain one low-hanging, that would be very helpful, sir. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. What's your good name?
Sir, my name is Dharamveer.
Dharamveer. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm seeing you.
Yes. Yes.
Dharamveer, thank you for asking that question. And I'm sure others also would like to know about this.
Yes.
So predictive governance is something which we introduced when I was the principal secretary. The whole idea was that we are having n number of applications in the country, in the state. Health will be having. So every department is having a different application through different vendors, through different stacks, through different technologies. Everybody is in silos. That's one of the biggest problems that you'll face in the government. When you come and see, even as an engineer, when you come in the government, you'll find this. Now, the answer to this has been given by Government of India in the form of what is called India architecture, India enterprise architecture. It's pretty costly. The only state which has done it is Andhra Pradesh, which is called Pragati. It's an acronym also. And Pragati software is used so that every government department can use the same stack and same interconnectivity to establish application software so that they speak to each other. Now, in Tamil Nadu and other places, we don't have that kind of money to invest. So we came out and said that the citizen is at one end, government is at this end, and the citizen has to always apply for something. Now, can you have a system where the citizen does not apply at all? Citizen can sit at home quietly and all his requests or requirements will come into his mobile vault. This is something which I call as predictive governance. I'm looking, if I can give me 1 minute, I'm looking for my pen. 1 second. Yes, I don't know. Some more than... Okay. So, predictive governance is, we introduced a triad. It's called a triad. I'll show my video so that you can see this. It's a triad. At the top is predictive governance. At this side is blockchain backbone, and at this side is what is called state family database. So these are three things that we introduced so that if these three things work together, we'll have what's called a predictive governance. That's simple. You are born. If you are born, at some point of time, we all die. So there is a birth certificate, there's a death certificate, and at the end of death also, you have what's called a heir certificate, legal heir certificate, right? So right from birth to death, government is there. And if government knows that you're born, then they also should know that they need these kinds of certificates at these points in time. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we were one of the first to actually come out with what's called a citizen number, in addition to what is the Aadhaar number. My predecessor came up with what is called a Makkal number or a citizen number. So for around 7 crore people, we have these 7 crore numbers ready and was lying in a database. So that actually kind of inspired me to look into this. So what we are saying is that if you look at any department, let's say Dharamveer, your name can be spelled in 40 different ways in 40 different government databases of 40 different departments. So what we are saying is we will ask one department to be, there will be only one Dharamveer with one Aadhaar number, one Makkal number or citizen number, and your father's, mother's name, address, date of birth, all those will be captured. Around 10 data will be captured and frozen. And then other departments can only add to the database. Other departments can only add to the database. So what will happen here is we will have a unique Dharamveer here. You will not have many Dharamveers. So then from there, when you apply for anything, the government knows that you need a vaccination. You are a newborn. You need a vaccination. So you will get an SMS saying that to your parents, saying that your child is now ready for vaccination. These are the vaccination centers. When you go there, they will invoke your citizen number and out will pop your details. And then they will issue the vaccination certificate. And the vaccine certificate will go to hit the Makkal number database or the citizen number database, and it will go to your vault. So if I can draw it here, this is birth, this is death. So this is birth certificate, this is death certificate. This is a citizen number, and this is a citizen vault. right? This is a bit imaginary. But the point is that once you're the newborn, but newborn doesn't have a citizen number. So we have number in the health department database. That from there we say, okay, six months, you'll get an SMS saying invoked. Then you'll hit here and go and sit your citizen vault. That's your first certificate. At 6 months of age, you at 5 years of age, you are ready for Aadhaar. It will say, you'll get an SMS, your parents will get an SMS saying that your child is now ready for Aadhaar. And these are the permanent enrollment centers, PEC centers, at 0.5 kilometers, 0.7 kilometers. You go there, you get a certificate, it'll go and hit your database. So this way, a number of things can be issued. This is and this will have a blockchain backbone. So this is an imaginary course. So for the triad, 90 crores was given for predictive governance. Blockchain backbone, 40 crores was issued.
Sir,
and for the state family database, 150 crores. So the work is on right now. I don't know how fast it is going because I am out of the system now. That's predictive governance. The low hanging fruits. Yes, to say something or. Dharamveer, can you hear me? Hello.
Sir, you can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so the low hanging fruit. So that is predictive governance. You don't need to understand this because nobody has done this. We are the only state who has started off and initiated. Just to say that your certificates can be issued, your statutory certificates can be issued without you applying for it. The system will be able to predict it that on this particular day, this particular boy needs to be issued a certificate. It will go and hit different databases of different applications of different departments in a predictable way. And then those certificates will be issued, the Makkal number or citizen number will be invoked, and then your certificate will go and sit in your vault. This is a very interesting way of thinking, but it can be actually done. So that's a point. Second is on blockchain. Simple. So blockchain is what? For A to give money to B, you need a bank. Bank is the intermediary, right? So here we are saying this bank will not exist. That's why the bitcoins and others are the RBI and all are angry with them. Now nobody wants, even China doesn't want this bitcoins and blockchain, etc. Now through disaggregated ledgers, your decision, if it's by consensus, which means more than 51% of the people on the different blocks, they agree, then that particular transaction goes through. So nobody can antedate, nobody can predate, nobody can tear off any of this data. Whereas in a data center today, for example, we created what's called a state data center in the National E-Governance Plan. You can actually go inside the data center and manipulate data if it's possible. If your bodyguards, if your guards stop you there, or if it doesn't have good guards who will stop you because it's supposed to be a type 2 kind of security. If they don't stop you, then you can actually go in and can manipulate data. Whereas in a blockchain system, you cannot do. Now, for issue of certificates, blockchain, Dharamveer is asking, what is the use of blockchain? Simple. No, today, Dharamveer, you give me about mine or to anybody else's here. But whereas in a blockchain issued certificate, it's absolutely impossible. That's the point. So that is a low hanging fruit. All the certificates that you issue from government can be issued using a blockchain, right? So that's one. For artificial intelligence, a simple example, I don't know whether this is a simple example. Now, imagine, this might be a complicated example, but I'm able to think like that really. Imagine that, you have the entire bank credit database and repayment database, entire bank credit and repayment database. And you see that, lots of farmers, sometimes for just 1 lakh rupee or 2 lakh rupees, commit suicide. Now, what happens after that? The government will go and pay 5 lakh rupees to the family. The point is, was it possible to prevent that suicide? It's something that comes to my mind immediately because you asked the question, Dharamveer. My point is, if we were to have, we were able to dabble in a bank's database and see the behavior of repayments, and if an algorithm can be developed which can predict the way, the frequency of repayments, etc., and you find that out of 100 people, 100 farmers, maybe 3 or 4 farmers are not repaying, they are slightly defaulting, etc., etc., etc. Is it possible for us to go and meet the farmer and ask him the problem before he does something drastic? I mean, this is something which I can think about, but there are hundreds of examples for artificial intelligence that you're using right now. For example, COVID. I was the other day in a meeting where somebody is actually saying, has created an algorithm which can predict the next wave based on the learnings. The algorithm has learned the inputs that have come from different databases, and the algorithm will learn it, and over a period of time will come and give you a pattern. See, for example, we are introducing an artificial intelligence based question paper, question setting. There is, out of 100 questions, how you're answering, how your answering pattern is, how many minutes you are taking on a particular section. So after this examination, if I were to give you a particular data sheet or statistical sheet saying that, you are very good in polity, but when it came to geography, look, it took a little more time. Wouldn't it be easy for you? So some of these, artificial, then Internet of Things is very simple. You want a smart home. We had created smart homes in Tamil Nadu, where you can switch off your AC sitting in your office. You can switch off your AC at home sitting in your office based on Internet of Things, which is basically remote devices at homes, etc. So I know I have answered a short question, very long, lengthy. Dharamveer. Dharamveer?
Yes, sir. Sir, he has a doubt of to explain this blockchain backbone, sir.
Oh, blockchain backbone. Okay, how do I go and put a screen here? So Dharamveer, the blockchain backbone is simple. See, like you have Hyperledger, you can actually take part of the Hyperledger and create your backbone, but you need a blockchain backbone from which these different documents can be issued. These are blocks of the different computers sitting at different locations, different servers, etc. And you are passing data through it, and in such a way that you will not be able to delete the data. There'll be a hash of it. Everybody in the system gets a hash. So that's what we are creating in Tamil Nadu, a blockchain backbone. I don't know whether it's happening right now. I'm under the impression right now that they have tendered for it last week. Even organizations like Hyperledger, etc., have been, evincing interest in this because it will be a big one. It'll be big for the state of, for a state like Tamil Nadu. And yes. Komal to everyone, sir. Yeah, one is asked how being an MBBS doctor can help in administration. Komal, I was asked this question in. Hello.
Yes, sir. You can speak, sir.
Yeah,
sir,
I can
go from the doubts of the first person, sir. Can we
first
go?
Question.
Yes, sir. I'll narrate the question, sir, to you. Can we?
Yeah, please. If they can ask the question, it'll be better. If can they ask the question, it'll be better, no?
Yes, sir. But,
okay. You moderate it also. No, I have no problem. Yeah.
What are the best practices from private sector that we can implement in governance, sir?
See, in most of the private sector, the use of paper is very, very limited. They use application softwares, whereas in government, we use for decision-making files. This is the essential difference. So in the private sector, they develop applications. So for example, you take a company You take a company, the decision making is very, very simple because one of the things is that steps are very limited. That is, the hierarchy is very limited. Whereas in government, it has to go from the clerk, then the superintendent, then the section officer, then the undersecretary, then it has to go like that, right? It's a more tedious process. So in the private sector also, what do you call, the bandwidth is very limited, whereas government is dealing with huge populations. So decisions have to be that much more faster. Whereas private sector relies on technology heavily. Best practices, if you see, one is paperless offices, ERPs, what is called Enterprise Resource Planning Tools, ERPs. I've been using ERPs for the last 25 years. So I know the benefit of it. See, I'll give you the example of when I was Principal Secretary IT, I was holding additional 7 charges and 7 IAS posts. Okay. Now, it was impossible for me. It would have been impossible for me to work. But I put ERPs in all the 7 locations and put video conferencing equipment in all locations. And by the time I reach office, all the files in all the offices would have been cleared. And evening also, while I come out of office, all the files will be cleared while I'm in the car using the laptop. This is the way private sector does. If you've seen private sector of people sitting and talking about sales or finance, etc., have you seen them use a piece of paper? You don't see that. I'm not against paper. All I'm saying is that paper will require time to travel from one table to the next. For example, if you go to a government office, whom do you think is the most powerful person in that office? Is it the chief secretary? In a secretariat, is it the chief secretary, or is it the secretary, or is it the undersecretary? I would say it is the peon who is the most powerful, because if she or she doesn't carry the file from one table to the other, the files don't move. As simple as that. Whereas in an ERP situation, the moment you click the thought. Good evening. So what is the biggest takeaway from COVID-19 as far as digital governance in India during 2019, COVID-19? This is asked by Siddharth. Siddharth, I'm sitting in Chennai right now. If I feel feverish and I think that I have COVID, and I look in my apps and I want to know which are the nearest testing centers, there's actually no app for me. So now what I do is I call up people and say, okay, where are the testing places? And after some time, I will reach one testing center. So one of the problems that I find is, even in a state like Tamil Nadu, I don't have an app which will tell me which is the nearest testing facility based on an algorithm which will measure distances, etc. Much like your Ola app or your Uber app. I should be able to do that, right? Wherever I am, I should know where it is. Second is, when you go to a testing center, after all this difficulty finding the testing center, see, for example, I tested 8 times. I had COVID. 8 times, my name was taken, my address was taken, my telephone number was taken, everything was taken 8 times, which means people standing in the queue are going to wait that much more. So that is also one problem which I found with COVID. Third is, when the result comes, there's no centralized application to which the result from the lab in the private sector or lab in the government sector or a lab in the NGO sector goes in. There is no centralized thing. Now, all these are collected manually, unfortunately, even in a state like Tamil Nadu. And finally, what they do is to show the cheapest, etc. They will put the whole thing into a software or an Excel sheet and show it on the screen. That's one of the biggest pitfalls of COVID-19 management. It would have been better had they used applications like this. Now, more importantly, somebody who is gasping, he or she requires oxygen. And as who is actually not gasping, who actually can be at home, right? This kind of disaggregated data at the human, somebody is gasping and her relative or his relative is running around to find an oxygen cylinder. Just imagine cylinder, the patient is gone. Now, many of these things, if we had live data, mark my words, live data, we could have prevented lots of deaths because we are not able to prioritize. So if you have 100 patients, in location A, you have 100 patients in location B, you have another 100 patients in location C. You are worried about this 300. Whereas, if, as a doctor, I should be worried only about who is gasping, who requires immediate attention, who requires attention a little later, and requires attention at home. And telemedicine and all can be. So basically, a triaging method is required on software through the interconnectedness of all the applications that different agencies might be using. So if you ask me, Arogya Setu was an interesting app that was developed, went into a lot of controversy. It helped people to find out if you were with someone who tested positive. Right. So that was the controversy also. The problem was that, it was a privacy issue also. So that's why it got into it. But as far as a big takeaway, I could say Arogya Setu was a big attraction, big success, because around 30 crore people participated in it. But I don't know how far it's being used completely, because of its problems. So very interesting question. Can we have empathy in AI? Jobs A can replace in future. What a developing country like India can do to prevent job losses from disruptive technologies. So, this is very interesting, Rohit, that you asked this question. So my officer, Santhosh Mishra, he came out with ethical AI. He was the first in the country, and we were the first in the country to come out with a policy on ethical AI, because AI can be really devastating. It has to be, it's a double-edged, or you could say many-edged weapon. And if it's not used properly, it can be devastating in its results. Data can be misused. People can get worried. There can be riots. There are n number of things that can happen with this. So empathy cannot be built into the algorithm. That's why, it requires all this artificial intelligence requires a lot of training in terms of inputting of data, and requires massive amount of data to dabble with in the first place. So you're not talking about hundreds of thousands. You need lakhs and millions and crores of data to deal with. So that's a very interesting question. Can jobs AI can't replace in future? I have to think about that, Rohit. There are many things, there are so many jobs that cannot be replaced by AI. For example, decision making in the IAS. I don't think, even if the IAS is abolished, still there has to be a bureaucracy. The organization will have to continue, and we'll need people, because these decisions cannot be based on AI, because each situation changes. A law and order situation, you might be handling a law and order situation. That situation cannot be resolved with a learning from another law and order situation, right? So government jobs, a lot of it will still continue. But let me tell you, this jobs that deal with a lot of data, for example, statistics, that will undergo massive changes. And, this will result in big data development, pattern reading, and all those things. I'll come back to you on that. Third is, what a developing country like to prevent job losses from disruptive technologies. Rohit, this is one question that can be expected in the interview also. Now, when the computers came in, not only the communists, even in Britain, Great Britain, there was a write-up in, I think, in the Times or some magazine, that, this is going to result in massive unemployment. And the computers and the system and e-governance and everything has proved it completely wrong. NASSCOM, I heard somebody from NASSCOM talking about this. That is, for every new disruptive technology that's to be used, more and more people needs to be done. So what's happening is upskilling is going to happen. More and more people get into upskilled, will get upskilled into, but other agencies will require lower skills also. So at the lowermost level, let's assume somebody is using labor. Okay, he also becomes upskilled because of the necessity. I don't think disruptive technologies will definitely bring in loss of jobs in particular areas to be compensated by loss when gain in other areas. So I'm not sure about that, because nobody has done a study on this, but definitely disruptive technologies will bring in new skills, and old skills will be replaced by new skills. I think that's possibly the answer that I can give you right now.
So there is a follow-up question on AI, sir. How
Yeah.
to use this AI in digital governance?
Right. So take COVID, for example. Okay. Let's assume we have the database of all Indians, right? So we also need to know post-COVID, how people are going to be affected. You know, everybody is not worried about, or the country is not really worried about this. The country is worried about, okay, the people are getting cured, right? Now, is it possible to have some kind of prediction on post-COVID job losses, post-COVID problems that are likely to affect people with a particular DNAs or particular predispositions, etc. You know, based on health parameters that can be fed into an algorithm. This is something which can be done, right? If you take a population of 1.3 billion, is it possible to predict that, you know, this particular section of population, a particular district or a particular village is likely to have this problem because they have certain receptor issues or T cell receptor or something related to immunity, etc., which you calculate on the basis of certain data that you collected over a use. But in a routine, let's say, government system, a routine governance system, let's say you're giving services to citizens. Now, what happens to services to citizens is the same service is taken by the same citizen multiple times. Is it possible to predict that, you know, using an artificial intelligence system, that, you know, this particular person cannot get this service anymore because he has received it? So there are a number of ways in which artificial intelligence can be used in governance. One of the things I would say is in management of law and order situations, or in finding out criminals, you know, for example, matching your databases, your facial data. You know, in India, there's something called a crime criminal tracking network system, CCTNS. Please read about CCTNS. It was introduced in 2009-10. It's advanced more. Now, CCTNS is a very simple system where you provided a couple of computers to all police stations across country, networked it. Now we have online FARs, etc. But is it possible that, you know, the CCTVs of the streets, if you are able to somehow, you know, network that through IP, Internet Protocol, and if a criminal were passing that way or a terrorist were passing that way, is it possible that it can tell us through facial recognition that this person is roaming around here? This criminal who has not been there has been roaming around. One of the things that Santhosh Mishra did was, he said, okay, let's collect all the CT scans, lung CT scans of people. And is it possible to teach the algorithm to detect tumors which are undetectable by naked eye, right? Or blood clots, for example, very, very micro blood clots. So these are the things that can be used in health, in law and order, in routine management, etc. Madhavi.
Yes, sir.
Shall I go by the questions here?
Yes, sir. We can go back to the questions that we have in the topic, sir. Can we?
On the topic, in the topic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, there's a small request, sir, because we can take the question and answer a little later.
Okay.
Because we are having a very big agenda.
Yeah.
So if time permits, we'll take questions, sir.
Right. So then I'll go straight to the questions that you raised in the morning, which is.
The doubts actually covers all this topic, sir. I have
okay. Okay. Can I share a screen? I just want to show the Government of India. Yeah, just one slide I want to show. Can you see the screen?
No, sir.
You're not able to see the screen?
Yes, sir. We are not able. Yes, now we are able to see, sir.
This particular screen.
Yes.
So my dear aspirants, you need to think about the institutions which are dealing with all this, not only e-governance. Buying land for companies. So I'm sure all of you have gone through this. But I want you to remember when you talk about particular initiatives, you need to think about the whole of how the organization in IT in Government of India looks like. Apart from the minister, secretary, etc., there are attached offices, national, see, for example, NIC here. STQs is Software Testing and Quality Control. So these are two organizations. Then if you look at autonomous organizations, there's CDAC. CDAC is actually dealing with the cyber security. For Tamil Nadu, they were the organization, they were the vendors dealing with cyber securities. CSA TN, cyber security architecture for TN was being done by them. So CDAC, then I don't know what is CMET, but the Samir is another organization which basically does testing of computers and televisions. When we bought 1.79 crores televisions for Tamil Nadu, we tested it under Samir. Then there's something called Software Technology Parks of India, STPI. Please read about it. Very interesting organization. It brings all the foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investors into India in the IT sector. Then there's something called EarnNet. Please read about it. Then there is NIXI, which is an organ of National Informatics Center, which will basically go to develop applications, softwares, etc. for you. Then there's something called Digital India Corporation, MyGov and NEG. I was supposed to go as the CEO of MyGov. The Prime Minister's office had called me to invite me over telephone to join there. But because I was doing predictive governance and stuff, I didn't go in Tamil Nadu. We had made the Honorable Chief Minister announce this in the floor of the Assembly. National E-Governance Division. Then there's something called Control of Certifying Authorities. Your digital certificates, etc., are issued by the Controller of Certifying Authorities. Then there's CERTIN, that is Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which deals with all the cyber security issues. Then there's UADI. Then there's CSC, which is the Common Service Centers. It is called a corporation now. So these are the different institutions that deal with IT in India. So my request would be just glance through it. Don't read through it. Glance through it, because you need to know all these short forms and the expansions of this, what they deal with. And it'll be very useful when you deal with, for example, emerging technologies. Who deals with it? I think all of them deal with it. For example, CDAC use a lot of emerging technologies. STQs use a lot of emerging technologies. NIC does it. All the organizations do it. But if you ask me about particular initiatives of e-governance, then it will be under Digital India. That corporation only will do it. MyGov will do it, or NEGD will do it. Okay. Otherwise, if it's about certifying authorities, it's the CCA, Control of Certifying Authority, which is about the digital certificates, etc. So I thought I'll just show you this. It is there in mighty Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology organization structure. Please go through it. This is not the only thing that you read, but obviously you need to know some acronyms and some institutions which are dealing with it. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the questions.
Sir, please, sir.
Yeah. The question was on cyber threats and security infrastructure. So for cyber in the
Your audio has a problem, sir.
I told
So audio,
you in the government,
the audio, there is a problem in the audio.
there is an organization called CERT, and for each state there are oh my god,
Now
can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Now it's okay.
Now it's okay.
Now it's okay.
So for cyber security, which is one of the questions which was raised by Bhuminathan and Madhavi, the answer is the organization is Computer Emergency Response Team for India. And for each state, the infrastructure is CERT and the state name. For example, Tamil Nadu. Then SOC TN, that is Security Operations Center TN. Then SAF TN, that is Security Architecture Framework. And then there's something called CCMP, Computer Cyber Security Management Program, which is headed by the Chief Minister, CM of the state. And at certain level, at Government of India level, it's basically led by the Prime Minister, because this is going to impact what is called the critical infrastructure, critical information infrastructure of the country. Critical information infrastructure. So there's another organization called Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Organization. So National NC Protection Agency or something. Now, these are the two agencies which basically deal with cyber security, whereas certain deals with basically government and all the websites, all the applications of Government of India and the state governments. The critical infrastructure. What do you mean by critical infrastructure? This is basically information infrastructure. For example, in the US, they had a huge problem when the Russians attacked them with the ransomware. This is called a pipeline. What is it? I forget the name of the pipeline. That stopped functioning. There's an oil pipeline, and was supplying around 45% of oil to the east coast of America, and stopped functioning one fine day. As you know, many of the countries, they act through proxies, or what is called non-state actors, right? So Russia and US were having a problem during the elections, if you know. So all these were done through these proxies. So that's one of the examples where the critical infrastructure is affected. So oil can be affected, or your traffic can be affected. Your entire traffic system stops through a malware. For example, there was something called Stuxnet. I don't know whether you remember this. This is much earlier. Stuxnet, Stuxnet. This was a malware introduced by Israel and US to stop the centrifuges in Iran. So because Iran was going through their uranium enrichment program and weaponization program, etc., they introduced Stuxnet, and they directly impacted the centrifuges. Centrifuges stopped functioning. Now, the collateral damage was even India was affected. Many countries were affected because of this Stuxnet. A lot of time for this whole virus or this particular program to be removed. Again?
So again, there is a...
What do I do? What do I do?
Okay. Now it's okay, sir.
Yeah, there's a problem. Now it's okay. Can I just take 30 seconds and see whether my my regular network is working? I'll just 30 seconds and see.
Please, sir. Please,
can I see
please,
that?
Sir,
Yeah.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Yeah. This Geo network. Yeah, it's coming. I don't think now you'll have a problem.
Yes, now it's clear, sir. Now it's clear.
Now it's clear. Thank God. Technology goes wrong. So one of the things that you should understand as probationers, as aspirants, is that whatever technology you use, there is always a problem. You need what is called redundancy. So my Geo was stopped working at the right time. Then I tried Airtel dongle. That also didn't work. Then I'm using my telephone dongle. So there is always a problem with technology. So what is the flip side of technology is that there can be a problem and you need to handle it. That's why we have organizations like Certain and all, because every day somebody is trying to hack you. For example, when I was in Handicrafts Development Corporation, my entire organization is paperless. There's no way I can introduce paper and start working. One fine day, we were attacked by the Russians. And it is a malware. It is a ransomware. But we didn't pay somehow, some smart organization said it all right. The point is, we should have cyber security at your personal level. The problem is, somebody will be asking this question, obviously, which is, what is the security that that we can have? What is the privacy? Obviously that question will come because somebody asks about artificial intelligence, whether it has empathy, etc. Now, privacy is an issue which is gone the moment you carry a mobile phone, a smartphone, right? A lot of data you're inputting into your Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Signal or whichever app that you have, you are supplying a lot of data about yourself. But at some point, by using something like an Apple phone, which is more security, or using some strong encryption devices, etc., or using what is called this network, what is called a virtual private network, etc., you could probably remain anonymous. but not all the time. Now, how many of us do that? Out of 100 people, not even less than one or even one will be using this, right? So we are all exposed to security issues. So if you look at your own laptop that is lying in front of you, somebody will come and put a dongle on it, a device on it, right? Data card. Now what happens is they're introducing a virus. So different levels of the self, the family, the organization. In the government organization, I find everybody is using a data card and putting it to somebody's data computer and happily going away. This kind of things are what we need to stop in government also, because we are introducing huge amount of security issues, personal data privacy issues, security issues are affected. So, so cyber threats and cyber security infrastructure, please understand there is certain, and there is a critical information network protection agency, which is there. Then e-governance policy, is it needed? I wrote the e-governance policy.
Sir, one follow-up question in the cyber security as well as problems in AI, sir.
Yeah, please.
If at all there is a, say for example, we have an AI in surgery, sir. If at all the patient dies, and who will be held responsible for a technology failure, sir, causing death of the person?
Yeah. Very interesting question. So there's something called vicarious responsibility. Now, if you read newspapers and all, we have something called intermediaries, right? There's Facebook is an intermediary, Twitter is an intermediary, everybody is an intermediary. Now, if you write something bad on Facebook, or because of that people get killed or something, is Facebook responsible? Is WhatsApp responsible? That question has asked many times, and Supreme Court said no, they are not responsible. But they have what's called vicarious responsibility. They have the responsibility to actually see or have filters to see whether any of these things are happening. So similar thing with an artificial intelligence thing also. Somebody develops it for you, a third-party vendor develops it for you. But ultimately, we have to take responsibility as human beings if something happens because of that. But you know, artificial intelligence is only good so long as it's fed with data. So if you think that you can facially recognize somebody with 1 or 2 data, photographs, etc., it's impossible. We need to keep feeding the algorithm, or the it's basically machine learning, right? So we need to keep feeding so much data that will become more and more proficient. So if you've seen Siri, first time you say it's no, I'm not able to understand you, I'm not able to recognize you, etc. But the more and more times you speak to Siri, which is on your bot on your Apple phone, it will recognize you. It will immediately give you answers. It will immediately take you to Google, etc. So artificial intelligence is dangerous in the sense that it can also take you to the wrong location. See, for example, you take Google Maps. In US, and this happened, a lady was driving a car, and she was exactly following the directions, and finally she fell into a huge pond, and she had to be rescued out of it because it was showing the right direction. Nobody knows how it happened. Was it a problem of technology? Was it that the pond developed overnight? Nobody knows. The point is, it can have its pitfalls if you don't have a human element to it. See, for example, these autonomous vehicles. You've seen many accidents. At least 3 accidents have happened in the US where the drivers got killed. They were not driving. But the, this is called, somebody said, my voice is lagging. Similarly, there's an internet lag. And the lag is not about 10 seconds or 15 seconds. We are talking about micro, milliseconds. So by the time an accident can happen, right? So those are the issues which artificial intelligence cannot or has not captured. But still, it has stood the test of time in the last so many years by putting our rockets across. It has taken our vehicles to Mars. Even the Chinese are able to put a rover there. The Indians are able to put a satellite around Mars. All this is because of technology, and especially emerging technologies. Madhavi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes,
controversy over Aadhaar.
Sir, before that, e-governance policy, sir. Yeah. There is one question asked about why you had an interest in going for e-governance, sir, as the MBBS doctor. Why?
Oh, my interest. Oh, okay. That's a very personal thing.
And
Now,
another question, sir. If
Ah.
at all the panel asks you to frame an e-governance policy, how should we start with, sir?
Okay. When you look at a policy, any policy, what does it say? State the problem. Stating the problem is the first thing in the policy. So in policy, there are three things. If you learn public administration, there's a policy formulation, there's a policy implementation, there's a policy feedback. Now in policy formulation, what happens is you are looking at an issue and saying, okay, can this problem be solved in a different way through technology? Okay. For example, when I joined as district collector in 2006 as in Krishnagiri, my problem was around 1,000 people were coming to my Monday grievance days. Now I calculated that for the person to come and go, 100 rupees is spent. For the person to eat, another 100 rupees is spent. The person to for the vehicle, etc., another 50 rupees is spent. Then maybe they are spending around 250 rupees for a bribe or something. Almost 500 rupees is spent by around 1,000 people. So 500,000, how much? Around 5 lakh rupees is wasted. So for me, the problem was, people say, lots of people coming to see the district collectors very popular, etc. But that's not the point. The point is people are coming there, wasting the time, and you're not giving them an immediate solution. So what my problem was, why should my people come to my office? Why can't they give a petition from their homes? So in 2006, probably in India, we created the first grievance redressal mechanism completely online. Right? So that was my policy. So my policy statement is simple. My problem statement is nobody should visit my government office for a redressal of a grievance. And the moment they log on to my computer, to their computer or their mobile phone, at that point of time, there were no smartphones, etc. They had to log on to the panchayat computer, etc. They will go to the application software, log in and put the register, log in and put their grievance. And my grievance redressal special deputy collector is there. All the grievances from the different blocks, from the different districts, from the different panchayats, everything will go here. And it will get redistributed. It means virtually it will go here and will get redistributed to the concerned BDO or revenue inspector or Tahsildar. It will go there. And by the next week, when I sit, next Monday, when I sit, I should have the responses. It's a very beautiful system. So being an MBBS doctor, so first is why, how a policy. First is policy, problem statement. What is a policy that you can use using technology, or forget that technology, forget anything. There's a problem, how to solve it. That is basically policy. Right. Now, being an MBBS doctor, I don't know how technology got into me, but I always wanted to work smart. See, I told you, I was holding 7 additional posts in addition to being Principal Secretary IT. If I were not smart, I would look like an idiot, right? Every day carrying files. I never carried a file home in my entire life in 25 years, 1995 to 2020. I never carried home a file. I never stayed beyond office beyond 6 p.m. And all my responses have been lightning quick. So how do I do that? It can be done only using technology, right? So it's long and short of it. All of you should develop interest in technology because that's the only way to transform. Integrity, innovation, technology. Your integrity should be high. You should be very innovative. You should bring technology. See, for example, virtual reality and handicrafts. We create India's or the world's first virtual reality handicraft showroom. I can send it to you I can send it to Bhuminathan. You can send that video. It's a 30-second video. You put this whole thing, you'll see my entire, showroom. You can pick up any item, look at it in different ways and buy it there and then. See how beautiful the world will be if you don't have to. See, for example, if I have to carry, if I were to do an exhibition, let's say in Australia, which I did, it would have been difficult for me to carry tons of, handicraft materials because these are bronze and brass. And I had to carry, whereas when I went to Australia, I showed this headset, asked them to put it on, see my technology, see my handicraft items, see my artisans. It's so easy. So that's the way integrity, innovation, technology, IIT, and you become a transformation leader. There are two types of leaders, incremental leader and a transformation leader. Lee Kuan Yew, LKY, I'm an LKY scholar. LKY was a transformation leader, but most of our leaders are basically incremental. That's the problem. That's why e-governance, even though we started as early as 2000 and all, we're still using paper and files and running around because we are not embraced it fully, because our leaders are not embraced it fully. Right. That's why I took VRS from government and joined politics and stood as an MLA candidate also. But of course, I lost out because I was in a small party. Anyways, can I go to the Aadhaar controversy? I don't remember this Aadhaar controversy.
Sure.
So, if I remember right, there was a judge by name Puttasamy. A judge. See, he went to court. When he retired, he went to court saying that Aadhaar is very unconstitutional because it's getting into privacy. And we didn't have a privacy law. Even today, we don't have. There's a draft privacy bill there, but we don't have a privacy law. And he said that, the state can become an absolute dictator because you are profiling people. So this was the problem statement, right? So he said, using this biometrics, that is my retina, my fingers, 10 fingers, etc., you are going to follow me everywhere. And there's a certain truth in it. Let's assume, it's much like my predictive governance. Let's assume that you buy something in a vegetable shop. And there you give a credit card, which is actually the KYC, let's assume, is done on Aadhaar. Then you go to a barber shop, cut your hair and use your credit card. All your movements can be captured actually on this. That's why the Supreme Court struck down this private thing. That is, banks, etc., cannot use this. But your PAN, when you ask for a permanent account number with income tax, when you get a subsidy, etc., we need Aadhaar. So basically, for government, they said this. So they struck down Section 57, which said that all agencies, private or government, can use this, and they said only government can use. So the controversy was set aside, and they said no, government with this kind of data, and these are basically, this data is all in silos, and thankfully it's in silos. It's in different data centers. So let's say your iris data will be here, your finger your thumb data will be here, your finger, another finger data will be in another server, etc. And because of this, profiling is not possible. That's the way they explained it out. Justice Chandrachud was the only person who gave a dissent and said that this is actually this thing of section article 19, which gives equality and does not discriminate, right? He said that anyways, you're supposed to provide basic services to people. Why do you give services only to people who have gone through the Aadhaar process? So I think this is, I'm a bit dated on this. I think this was in 2018, this in September, I think, because I was principal secretary at that time of IT, and this Aadhaar Act came. And because of that, the private agencies, today, nobody can say, give me your Aadhaar number for giving you an Airtel SIM. They cannot ask, right? Earlier, they used to ask this. Now only government can ask, especially only the IT department can ask for the PAN. And if you're receiving any subsidies from government, they would obviously like to track this. Now, if Aadhaar was used across private sector everywhere, then it would be very easy to track your purchases, where you went, all those things. Much like banks these days have what is called, banks, the moment you apply for a loan, they say, no, you have taken this loan from this place, you're not taking, you have so much of repayment left, etc. I forget the name of that. What is that called? CIBIL score. Yeah. The CIBIL, Aadhaar could have been like your CIBIL. They would know exactly your pattern. And let's assume someday a government database gets hacked. Then you're finished. You can be kidnapped, or, they'll know exactly who is holding what money, where, his movements. It's pretty dangerous. So that's the controversy over. Are there anything, Madhavi, on this? Hello.
Sir, please proceed, sir.
Okay. Then on the Arogya Setu, see, one of the things that Arogya Setu, I also downloaded Arogya Setu, but I didn't find much of use in it, except that the controversy was about, I think, about tracking again. You know?
But even the creator was not known, sir.
Yeah. So it was done actually by the agency into which I was supposed to go as CEO. That was done by MyGov. But when they published it, they said that NIC and the private and academics, academia, etc. created this. So one of the reasons was that when somebody went into RTI and asked for who is the creator, they said it's NIC. NIC gave a statement to the Supreme Court saying that, no, we have no idea about this. Then they were asked, and then Abhishek Singh, who replaced me, he said, no, it is basically, we consulted everybody and came out with it. Because there's no law that backs this. That's the problem with many of these tracking things. There's no law. Aadhaar has a law that backs it. There's an Aadhaar Act. There's no Arogya Setu Act. Now, this is done with a lot of good faith, right? So they wanted to know, they wanted to help you to find out if somebody you were talking to in the last 1 week has developed COVID, because his data has come into the central database, and you get a notification saying that, you know, last week you were with this person at this particular point of time. Please take care, go and check. You know what happens because this is privacy is invaded. There's another problem. Suppose you are on floor 1 and you're on floor 2. There's a big distance in terms of physical distance, but it'll show as if you are together. And someday, you know, the corporation can come and say, you know, based on this Arogya Setu data, both of you are together and this person is COVID positive. So you also need to test positive, etc. So these are the problems that were associated with Arogya Setu. I think India has crossed all that now. Nobody's talking about Arogya Setu anymore. At that point of time, I still believe that, this is my personal take. I believe that technology can be extremely useful. But at the same time, government should ensure privacy. Now, how do you balance this is the $100 million question that you're going to be asked when you go to the interview board. That government has to ensure. You know, many of these things government has to ensure. But, you know, you look at what you're doing. You're working on Facebook. You're working on Twitter, LinkedIn. Oh, so much of data you're giving without asking a question, right? And what are they doing? They're selling your data, right? So when I stood for elections, somebody came and told me, sir, for one data, 50 rupees. I'm willing to give you 5 lakh data about this Velachery constituency. I said, how do you get this data? Sir, I was working in this particular organization and we had the database. And basically it was a gas agency, you know, this person from the gas agency. A person in the gas agency, because he's supplying gas to all the area, he has full data, which is willing to sell. Now, this is where we have a problem. Your data, my data is across the world is being sold left, right, and center. So much so that even if when you put a DND, do not disturb, still you get calls from Bajaj Finance, you'll get calls from Apollo, you'll get calls from, you know, so many people asking whether you need this product or service. No, that's an invasion of privacy. So I think maybe you need to deal with it a little more carefully. I think the cybersecurity architecture, which is basically for government, will be kind of useful. But what about private citizens? Your data is going in and out. So we have to have a certain kind of encryption, one, or something like a virtual private network that we use, etc. So that's my answer to that. Madhavi, can I go ahead?
We have a follow-up question, sir.
Yeah.
One is such an app like done by the government. It is not the people who are not aware and the people who not have access to because of the digital divide and literacy. How to bridge that, sir?
Yeah. So this is go ahead.
Another question is, can we not have a decentralized database instead of going for a centralized database so that we have the control on data?
No, that's out of the question. Decentralized database is the worst thing that you can have. It will not give us any kind of, you know, unless it's connected, any kind of meaning, because we need to create meaning out of data. We need to create patterns of the data. Now, decentralized data is, you know, the pre-computer days. Do you want to go to the pre-computer days? No, absolutely not. you are applying for something, and you're applying for a passport, and you need to know how many people are ahead of you, how many people are behind you. All this determined by the what's called the addition of data, right? So decentralized data is possible in a blockchain, but it's all connected. So it's basically not decentralized. It's all centralized, except that it's not in a data center. Decentralized data, no. The other question that you asked was, first question that you asked?
A digital divide, sir. And how the people are aware about such apps which are done by the government.
So in this particular case, I think they did it out of over enthusiasm. Suddenly they developed it without spending money, etc. But the idea was brilliant. The problem is all these have to be backed by law. So there should have been an Arogya Setu Act. Then it would have had the backing of law. It didn't have the backing of law. Second is due process was not followed, because I believe some brilliant officer wanted to do quickly and put it on, put it out there. So it didn't go through a process of selection of vendors, etc. So that's why it's important in government for every department to go through the process. You expedite the process using technology. For example, use an e-tender panel. See, for example, I used to be MD of ELCOT in 2008-10. I did around 600 tenders. All tenders were on paper, paperless tenders. Use technology, but go through the process. That's very, very important. Madhavi, I'm losing. Madhavi.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'm there, sir. What is any problem, sir?
No, I'm asking, is it enough?
Yes,
or
sir, it's done, sir. Next question is, government doing enough to protect our private data with it?
Yeah, so this has to do with a lot with privacy, Privacy Act. There's a draft privacy bill which is in circulation. It's not come into an act. Now, what they have done in the last many days, last maybe 3 months, they came out with a amendment to the IT Act and rules, and said that Facebook, Twitter, all the intermediaries, isn't it, have to kind of comply. They'd have to have compliance officers based in India. One, they have to have resident officers who are based in India. I was the principal secretary, and there was a direction from High Court saying that on this particular date, within this week, Chief Secretary has convened a meeting of all intermediaries, etc. All this was part of that, and then finally Supreme Court clubbed it all together and gave out this direction through the government. So what is government trying to do? Government is saying, okay, there is a particular news that is spreading on a wildfire on WhatsApp. How do we know who started it? Who started the fire? Now, one of the things that everybody is saying is the first person who forwarded that, his number should be there in every forward. And I personally believe that that's a brilliant thing to do. But then what happens to encryption? So the problem with WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, etc. is it's end-to-end encrypted. You have no clue. Even the organization doesn't have a clue. So how do we get over this? This is $1 million question again. Obviously you would want good things to happen on the internet, but lots of there was a doctor who was lynched in Assam based on a WhatsApp saying that child lifters are on the prowl, etc., and the doctor and his friends were killed. It was deeply shocking for whole of humanity because the people behave like mobs. They're afraid. They get this WhatsApp message. Now, how do we protect our own people from our own people? This is the question. Because we are going by conjecture, we are going by half truths, we are going by half everything, and we are now. That's why Government of India has come out with this. But then again, it's a question of in a democracy whether we should stifle dissent. No, because this can be used in different ways by government, right? In a democracy, there are, I think, 3 or 4 directions were there in that in this IT amendment rules, which is brought out recently. One of it was anything that affects law and order. Now, this can be used by a local constable to prevent you from using your internet, right? So unless things are spelled out very clearly, and I'm sure the data privacy bill and the data privacy act, when it comes out, it will give a lot more, credence to this. How to balance privacy, person's privacy, with the nation's security. See, these are the two extremes. So I'm a private individual. The nation's security is also involved. How do I balance both? So I think via media will be arrived at. I'm sure government is trying its best, but then citizens groups, NGOs, everybody are up against this particular act, because they're saying Twitter, Facebook, etc. are publishing anti-government propaganda, or they want to silence people who are saying against government, or putting up comments against government. So it can be used in different ways. You've seen it happen in the pink revolution, not pink revolution. The Middle East, there was a revolution. So that revolution also, they stopped all internet. They stopped communication and led to more chaos. It could be actually counterproductive when you're trying to control too much also. So there has to be a balance between a person's idea about privacy and the need for public order, right? I don't know whether you answered this question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is one question, like why the lacunas in national cyber security policy, sir?
I have no idea about this lacunae, but okay. I can tell you that.
Sir, I'll make it very broad, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, our technology is moving far faster than the regulations and the law, legal infrastructure that we can create. How to bridge that, sir?
It will always be like that. Technology will move fast because some smart aleck sitting in Chennai or in Gurgaon or in Assam is creating technology and coming out with it. And then only people realize, oh my God, this needs to be regulated. So that will always be like that. Technology will come first and regulation come later. For example, when they say information technology boomed in India in spite of government. Government didn't realize that this was happening. Then they came around and said, we need to regulate and we need to bring in all this regulation. So that's a given. That is, technology will go ahead and then we need to regulate it. For example, you take artificial intelligence or blockchain. We have to find the pitfalls. People have to use it extensively to find out where the lacuna is, where there could be a privacy breach, etc. Then only can they come out with a response to that. So what was your question, Madhavi?
Yes, sir. Lacuna is the technology and the regulation gap.
Yeah. So the less regulated, the better. According to personally, government should be there to regulate. They should not be creating all these apps and all. They should be regulating between. Internet is all about privacy. And it's all about security. So this balance has to be struck somewhere. So I believe that while individuals, startups, youngsters bring out technologies, they are also made aware about the problems that this might create, right? So when, for example, how do I say, when a gaming app is evolved by a 17-year-old guy sitting in Russia. Okay, now the game is good, it's brilliant. Youngsters throughout the world are acting on it, but people are getting addicted to it. That is something on which that youngster didn't bank on. He never thought it will become like that. People in China are spending 18 hours, 19 hours, they don't sleep and spending hours on this. Now, that's where, government comes in and says, now we need to regulate this. Right. So obviously, this is a straightforward question of first technology coming in and then regulation happening. So if you look at bitcoins or if you look at blockchain, government has not said yes, no to it, but they are not said yes to it also. But different people are using blockchain. For example, many of them are buying bitcoins. They're mining it. Lots of stuff is happening on the internet. A lot of Indians are doing it, right? So at some point of time, when government comes to understand the pitfalls of, let's say, blockchain technology, then they'll come to regulate it. So it will be always like that.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, how to tackle misinformation, sir? If internet shutdown is the only solution, what is the alternate for internet shutdown?
Internet has come to stay. The next thing we'll all be talking about will be not blockchain or any of this. This will be there for another 5 years. But something that's going to happen is quantum computing. So internet is going to stay. That's one. Now, like everywhere, there are law and order issues on the internet also. There's a deep dark web. A lot of child trafficking, pornography, all those things are happening on the deep dark web. Lots of arms sales, etc. happening. And a lot of this is happening using cryptocurrency, etc. I think that's where I think government has to come in with an iron fist. There's no doubt, because you have to maintain peace and order. That is, law and order is the basic role of a government. People have to peacefully carry out their activities without affecting others. That being the case, I think government has to come out, has to be vigilant, has to have applications developed by, let's say, Israel or some place, to see whether we can get into areas which are being used by terrorists and the deep net guys. I think that's where our vigilance has to be. The other thing is, how do we, we are having a generation being brought up on apps and smartphones, etc. So are they spending the time effectively? Are they wasting the time, etc.? So parents need to have a little regulation on that. So all this can be done remotely also today. That's where AI and all those technologies will be very useful. So it needs to be regulated. I agree. But regulation should not be at the expense of freedom. That's something which, a question can be asked. A regulation at what cost? If they're going to regulate my activities, if I'm not doing anything illegal, but if they say, you cannot use this, you cannot use this particular app, you cannot use WhatsApp because WhatsApp is not complying with the laws of the country, then the entire country has to stop using WhatsApp. We might go back years in terms of our growth, in terms of technology usage, etc., because we got used to it. Now, at some point of time, government and WhatsApp, or government and Facebook, or government and Twitter have to sit on the table and say that we'll do things which will be basically useful for public welfare. And we'll come down heavily on people who is going to misuse this. Right?
Thank you,
Madhavi.
sir. Yes, sir. About the digital education, sir, how far the people has to be educated, and how far the government departments have to be educated and come away from the hesitation in using digital technology.
So,
and what is your experience on that, sir, regarding the hesitation that you have to fight?
Regarding the
hesitation, sir, hesitations.
I didn't understand that.
Sir, the government department or status quo is they don't use digital technology. They don't learn.
Yeah, it's not government departments. It's basically IAS officers. Government departments are ready. If the leaders are ready, the departments will become online. So whenever leadership, for example, in Delhi, I met a joint secretary, and she was telling Santhosh, I will not use it unless forced to use it. So that being the case, wither technology, wither leadership is what went in my mind at the point of time. So, but COVID has kind of made us, for example, 2011, I was the secretary IT, and I made the entire IT department paperless. And somehow it went into the news and all. There was a fire in Mantralaya. Mantralaya is the Secretariat of Maharashtra. And then they called me about this and how to make, and then they made the entire secretariat paperless. Now, that was a need. There was a need, there was a crying need, because files got lost. millions of crores of rupees worth of files, got lost. Now, my point is, look at COVID. Yeah, look at COVID. COVID is a situation where you cannot step out. But government officers are being asked to come into government offices. I have been telling the chief secretary, why should you ever call anybody into the secretariat? Why can't they all function from home? Like, teachers are teaching students these days, online learning. Now, imagine what is happening in the country. A lot of teachers are using virtual reality to teach first standard, second standard. I want you to go into Google. In Kerala, one teacher came out with this fantastic classroom exercise. They're teaching about an elephant. The student will see the elephant on his screen, just like a live elephant, and as if standing next to the teacher. The point is, the computer and technology affords us today so much in terms of enhancement of your skills. For example, now I'm talking to you. You can see me write. I can see you. I can see your questions on chat box. That's the power of technology. And people are getting used to it fast. Unfortunately, COVID had to come to teach some of us to learn to use the computers. People say, if I use the technology, will become a collector. So I used to say, you don't need to become a collector. There's already a collector here, but it'll be useful. So that's why we know in my manifesto, we released something called a computer for each home. So today's Hindu, if you read, there's a write-up on gender gap in IT infrastructure. So they say only 14.3% of women in India use internet. Now, she being a housemaker, homemaker, a person who is employed outside, etc., a decision maker, she has to have that facility of the internet. So let's assume that you have a computer at home, but it's not a laptop. Let's assume that it's in the middle of the house, just like a television. It's a common property resource. Let's assume that. The father can use it, the mother can use it, the son can use it, the daughter can use it, assuming there's a 4-member family. The father might be, let's assume that he's working in government and he wants to clear files online. He can clear that. Let's assume that he has to transfer amount of money. Let's assume that the woman is also working in a private sector or the government sector. She has to use it. She can also use that. Let's assume the child has to learn because it's COVID. They can also use that, isn't it? How much it is going to change time. See, one of the things that I want to tell all of you aspirants is that the only resource God gave equally to everybody in the world, it is not food, it is not air, it's not water, it's not space. It is the 24-hour capsule, right? You agree with me? The President of America, Joe Biden, has the same time as you and me. He's the most powerful man in the world, but you and me have the same time as him. So which means the biggest premium on earth is time. As I am speaking, I am moving more towards my destination, isn't it? Right? So time is very important. So in a distance education or in an internet education, what you're saving is time. For example, let's assume that you had all to come to Chennai to meet me on this particular class. You need to have taken flights, you need to have taken, wasted a lot of money. But more important thing is a lot of your time is wasted. But today, sitting in the confines of a comfortable home, you're able to listen to me, make sense of it, ask questions, respond back, and look at us. We are around 150 of us, all of Indians. We are not seeing each other, but thanks to technology, this brings us together. So I would say one of the biggest inventions in the world was, of course, internet, but after that it's Facebook, because it's brought us all together and we are able to interact, and it's good for societal transformation. Madhavi, anybody wants to ask direct questions, I'll be very happy.
Sir, because we are running short of time, it will take time. So we have 2 more questions.
You can moderate it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. 2 more questions to go. E-commerce regulations, the challenges in it, and why there was a confusion.
So, see, the problem with e-commerce, the Competition Commission of India has filed cases against Flipkart, etc., because they said particular vendors were being favored, and that can be easily done. It's possible to do in e-commerce. Only rivals can tell this. And luckily here, rivals were able to inform, because, these are questions about margins. And the margins are wafer thin. Let's say you're buying a computer for, let's say, 50,000 rupees. And the computer is actually being sold in the open market 60,000 rupees. You're getting it 50,000 rupees. So margins are less here, right? Whereas, because margins are less, you need to sell in volumes, right? So because you need to sell in volumes, you need to favor somebody, because that vendor will give you a little more margin. So this is what's happened in, I think, Flipkart's case. I think Competition Commission has come in here very heavily on, I don't know which, Amazon, Flipkarts, etc. So this can be done, no? Even if you don't do it on internet. People have been doing this in the Kirana shops. Everybody has been doing this across the world. This will definitely. But thanks to technology today, who is getting favored, who is not getting favored. Is it a level playing field? So I think it's this would not have come to notice if it is not e-commerce. Because it is e-commerce, we get to know, because there's data, and data can be culled out. And your Competition Commission of India has the data, or they were given the data. So it's all thanks to technology this has happened.
With one last question, I'll let the students to ask their doubts.
Yeah.
Sir, considering there are a number of e-governance applications gone with a PPP mode. So we are lending out certain data to the private companies, the government data to the private company, which is the public data.
Yeah.
So having said that, are we not vulnerable to a private company with the data to the private company? Can it not be possible that the private company sell it to some other country even?
Very, very possible. That's happening. I cannot tell this because I was holding that. I was shocked to find that a lot of our data was with private vendors. And I'm talking about huge data. And I was very surprised that nobody asked this question, because, the developer is always a private sector guy. Like, for example, you take an Infosys, or if you don't keep the data, and of course, there's NDA clause, etc., non-disclosure agreements, etc., that will be part and parcel of the agreement. But information is stored in these private data centers. That's why Government of India came out with the data localization initiative. They said that if Indian data has to be dealt with, then your data centers have to be in India. That's why Microsoft established a data center somewhere here near Chennai. Amazon was looking for land. They came to me and met me. AWS, etc. All of them are now scurrying for land and space to build data centers. So while data centers will ensure that the data remains within the jurisdiction of India, still the data is held by the private entity, right? But the only thing government can do is ensure that the keys to the data lie with the government departments. The only problem with government is, one fine day you are transferred. Next person doesn't even get to know that one of his responsibilities is to ensure data privacy or data is with him. That doesn't happen. When you don't hand over, in the private sector and all, they have strict protocols on data. Our protocols are pretty weak, and we are still evolving. That's because government has been a late starter on technology, but Government of India has done a huge amount of work on this. Many of the state governments are doing very well. Many of the
Sir, you have to unmute yourself, sir. Sir?
Yes, please.
So you're not hearing me all this time?
No, sir. Only.
No, sir.
Oh, you muted everybody, and I also got muted. Okay, I had to unmute. Got it. So what I was trying to say is data. Every government department does a tender to get a private agency to do the software development. Once the software development is done, they engage the same agency or another agency to beef up the data. And mostly these are held in private servers. That's why government came out with what's called the SDC, State Data Center. Every state was given something like 50 to 100 crores. So in Tamil Nadu, I got 60 crores. I was the first to do it in the country. We were the first to do it in India, the state data center. So government, what is said is, government's data should not go to the private vendors. So they paid, that's on the National E-Governance Plan, NEGP. They had state data center, average 60 crores, state service delivery gateway, around 15 crores, through Tamil Nadu State Wide Area Network, SWAN, State Wide Area Network, around 150 crores, for state portal, etc. So basically, a lot of money was given by Government of India to the state governments to deal with data, so that the data is one SDC, it doesn't go out. But now the requirements are going huge. See, for example, 2010 is when I came out with the data. 2020, we came out with SDC. This is SDC 1, SDC 2. But now the flow of information is exponential, that these two will not last for another 10 years. So how much more will governments invest? My own thing is, there is something called a cloud, right? The cloud is obviously held by the private sector. Is held by the private sector. But we can have strict and sovereign agreements with this cloud, saying that if my data is compromised, your CEO will be arrested, your top level will be gone. That kind of compromise we can have, because we can't go on investing like this. Government's capabilities, see, we had to learn on the job to how to create a state data center. Obviously, we had the Wipros of the world, etc., with us. But then, how to put an RFP, a request for proposal. It's very difficult, this thing, for something which we have not learned. Whereas the private sector deals with day in and out. Then we have to go in for another tender to come out with a PwC or a Deloitte, who will be a consultant, or a Ernst & Young, EY, etc., to write out the RFP. So government goes through a lot of pain before they come out with something tangible. So that's why, your Aadhaar was mooted in 2005. It came out in 2011 only. Why? Because of the procedural issues. Now, my own thing here is that the state is a very, very powerful organization compared to a private organization. You can have strict protocols on data and conserve your data, be it on the cloud. Why should we invest on this? Unless it is critical infrastructure, something to do with your security of the nation. The Army, Navy, they all have virtual private networks. While we have BharatNet, we give permission to the Army to put another network throughout the country, right? Because they have to be secure. They cannot deal with the routine, because they're dealing with the security of the country. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Fine,
sir.
sir.
I let the forum for the students. Please ensure that you mention your name and make the question very simple and short.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good name?
So this is Chetna.
Chetna.
Sir, I have a follow-up question from the last discussion we are having about the data security, and we need to have a system in place to hold the private partners accountable for our data.
Yeah.
Sir, in that regard, is it like, can we have, or are we already having some initiatives which are working on safety audits, like which happens in private companies? They have data audits, they have infrastructure safety audits, so that the data doesn't leak. So we have such kind of any setup in the government.
Absolutely,
right now?
absolutely. No, absolutely. So there are audits happening all the time. So especially in Tamil Nadu, I have seen when I was in charge, I realized that people are talking about these audits. So not only was a security testing being done and load testing and safety and all those, privacy audits and data leak audits will also be done once in a while. Some SQL injections will happen. We'll call private hackers to come and try to hack the application. So this is a continuous exercise. But the point is that we are still learning on it because, we don't know at what level who has access to data. And if that person, are we doing an audit on him? I don't think we have done that.
So yes, exactly my point.
Yeah, is he carrying his laptop, the data of people? We are not doing that. I think we have not reached that level of auditing like in the private firms, like, in the Infosys and TCS and all, they do such fantastic audits. We are not there, but maybe we would have covered 10-15%.
Thank you, Chief. Now we can allow one more question.
Sir, good evening, sir.
This is
Lakshman.
Come again.
Good evening, sir. Harsh Yadav this side.
Hi, Harsh. Good evening.
So my question is, like you mentioned that you did paperless work in 2006, and I've seen that recently Haryana also in delivery service implemented it. But we see a lot of gap at other states. I mean, why can't such things be done at an all India level so that all states take advantage of it? Every state doing it in silos and taking private players into the place, spending more money. Why they can't be learnings and case studies shared all around? Sir, if you could give some information on that.
Yadav, it's all been done by the Government of India. So Government of India in somewhere in 2010, 2008 to 2010 realized that, this different states have different levels of technology. For example, the South was doing very well. Some of the North Indian states were doing very well. So they came with what's called the NEGP. So that's where they came out with protocol after protocol. Fantastic reading that, because first was infrastructure. One was money, because state data center, all those things that I talked about, state service delivery gateway. Of course, it's not needed now. At that point of time, they give around 15 crores. Then the SWANs, then the state portal, etc. A lot of money was given. One. Then they also had what's called mission mode projects. So certain departments were taken as mission mode departments, and a lot of money was given to develop RFPs. But what happens here is, once the money comes to the state government, they will do the way they want. So each state according to its capacity. That is the federal system. You can't do anything with that. See, for example, I remember CCTNS. I brought that 109 crores from Delhi to Chennai, Tamil Nadu. And the Government of India said only a few states will allow them to do their own software. Rest of them have to do what's called the CAS, what's called their own, their customizable system. And Tamil Nadu, we went hammer and tongs at it, because Tamil Nadu was included. We said, we're a big state. I went to Delhi around 4 times with the DGP. Finally, we got our own system. The point is, we are in a federal setup.
Right.
That's one. State governments decide depending on the dynamism of their officers. It's not even based on policy, I would say. So many of the things in Tamil Nadu, for example, I was there in 2008 as MD LCOT Director, E-Governance CEO of Tamil Nadu E-Governance Agency. Then I was IT Secretary. Then I came back again in 2018 as Principal Secretary IT, etc. A lot of it was driven by me. But again, it's individual passion and all. It doesn't become part of the system. Even within the state, you forget different states. Even within the state, different departments are at different levels, because there is no directive from the top. For example, when Chandrababu Naidu was the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, let's say this is Andhra Pradesh, he was at the top. He was technology savvy, and he ensured that everybody became technology savvy. Whether he won election or lost election, because that's an entirely different thing. But the point is that today AP, Bharat, Telangana is one of the most advanced states in the country in terms of technology. They at the 4th, 5th level, they can speak to you, an IAS officer, even better than an IAS officer. I've seen that. Right? So it matters who is at the top. It matters how different states want transparency. Okay, it all depends on politicians. It depends on a lot of IAS officers. If they want, it can be done. For example, I told you about Pumpuhar. I want to demonstrate it as a complete use of technology at every level. And I did it. It's still sustaining. It's going on. I did it because I was at the top. Nobody at this level, this level, this level, this level, even if they want, they cannot do. Only this person can decide. Chandra Babu Naidu. He decided, and the whole state became. Now, he started off, other states wanted to do, but different CMs were different levels of understanding. So that's the problem. And all depends on the capacities of states to absorb also. Because this needs a lot of technical people. And South had it because Bangalore was already the Silicon Valley, etc. Right?
Right.
Thank you, Harsh.
All the best, Yadav.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
Lakshman wants to ask
No.
a doubt, and Lakshman and then Aditya can ask doubt.
Sir, good
Lakshman,
evening,
please
sir. This
proceed.
is Lakshman, sir.
Hi, Lakshman. Good evening. How are you?
Yes, sir. Fine, sir. Sir, my one question is that what is the issue behind the pirated software? Because we are widely using the pirated software, and how could we eliminate the usage of the pirated software, sir?
So government should provide, if you're talking about government, if you go to government offices, entirely pirated softwares are used. That's because they allow you to buy a computer. But these are requirements, and this license are pretty costly. So when you buy, let's say, a laptop for 50,000 rupees, another 15-20,000 is spent on software. Now, many of the governments don't provide this. One. Two is, some smart alec will be there in that organization. He'll say, sir, why do you want to waste money? Sir, why don't you put this? The point is, pirated software should not be used because we don't know what embedded items come with it. It could be malware, it could be ransomware, it could be data collection methods. The Chinese does this. They'll inject, give you an app and collect all the information from you, right? So, as a matter of policy, we should not be using pirated software. Only use licensed software, because the reason is you always get what is called updates in the form of what is called patches, right? So why are these updates happening? Because your application is getting hit, hacked, right? And it needs medicines. It's just like your infection. When it gets infected by a virus or a Trojan or a horse or whatever, or a program, then it needs to withstand that invasion. So that's why you need to, whereas a pirated software will not have this. You will not get a license. And beyond all that, it is illegal. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Komal, Aditya wants to ask a doubt, and then we can have Komal. Aditya, please speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. My name
Good
is
evening,
Aditya.
How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, I have two questions, sir. One thing, you have done a lot in eradicating child labor, but at this light of COVID, we can see that many children have come out of education and they are pushed to poverty. So there are chances that they will be hitting back to child labor again. So what we can do about that? And the second question is about agile governance.
Yeah. Okay. To answer your first question, so when I was Collector Krishnagiri, I brought back 10,000 out-of-school children. Very interesting. I had a tracking software. The moment they drop out also, I'll get to know. It'll pop up on the screen, right? I'm talking about 2006-8. The point is, the decision I took when I joined as collectors, when I'm the district collector, not one child will be a child labor. So I devised this something called out-of-school children. So out-of-school children can be child labor. It can be a child looking after a younger child. It can be a child looking after a cow. But whoever is out of school was my enemy. So I brought them all back. Whatever they asked in the world, I give. They want a road, given. They want a bus on the road, given. They want a house, given. They want a plot, given. The only condition I put was bring the child back. The child will continue, the dropout. So I had 10,000 volunteers called Village Volunteer Force. Now, what I'm trying to, I'll explain why I'm saying this. I had 10,000 village volunteers. And the moment they drop out, I'll get to know. The children drop out. My volunteers will put it on the screen, on the computer, and I'll get to know. And a massive success. And continue, a lot of them became doctors, engineers, etc. That's a different story. The point I'm trying to say is, if a district collector like me, a very ordinary district collector can do this, governments should ensure that even in this pandemic, no child enters into the child labor, or no child becomes out of school. Even though they are out of school, they are not out of education. So that can be ensured. Today they can be ensured because the only way they are out of school or out of education, especially in pandemic, because the parents are not able to earn, etc. It's because there is a poverty at home and the children have to kind of fend for themselves or bring additional income. Now, this is where we need to find out the vulnerable families and ensure that we give them support, especially migrants, etc. So they're the children. Now, this is something which states have to take it as part of their statesmanship, have to ensure, because this one thing can pull your state down in your SDG index, on your human development index. You would have been doing well. Start my video. So you would have been, can you see me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you'd have been doing well, trying to negotiate all the 17 SDG points, etc. Suddenly the pandemic happens, and your children drop out. Then your children go into child labor, etc. Your state gets pulled down. We have a commitment to the United Nations. We have signed it, and by 2030 we are supposed to be at some particular level. Now, Aditya's question is brilliant because a lot of our migrants, we have seen them. They're migrating on foot, walking thousands of kilometers. If that can happen, child labor can easily happen, or children dropping out of education can easily happen. It's happening in different states, but it is a commitment of the state. For example, Kerala government, Tamil Nadu government, etc. have ensured that the children don't drop out. Teachers have been made specially responsible for this. The other question was about agile governance. So this 10,000 out of school children is very interesting. You can read it on my personal website, santhoshbabu.org. That's where Dr. Kalam spoke with me and spent an hour with me on telephone, etc. Now, on agile governance, it includes not only paperless offices. It includes a whole lot of things, which I call a smart governance. Right? So different technologies have to be used at different points. That's why we create something called a state Tamil Nadu, what is called emerging. We create a center of excellence in emerging technologies. Now, the idea was, different departments of government have problems. They have problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. How do they solve it? They'll sit around a table and assume that this can be solved this way. This is conventional method. Now, if you're in an agile governance is actually a specific term, I know, but my understanding of it is, now let's assume that we pose this problem to a startup to come out with a technology solution. I'm 200% sure that they'll come up with a solution which is 100 times better than this particular solution. So your governance becomes very, very smart and simple. I've seen this happen. A lot of the startups are not thriving in India. Why? Because the biggest market is government. But what does the government do? Government will say you cannot participate in tender because your turnover is not 3 crores. You should have been last 3 years show your IT returns. What will a startup do? Startup will be a 25-year-old boy and a 25-year-old girl or a group of people. They will not have anything. That's where governments have to adopt what I call as S to G. We have G to G, G to B, etc. Startups to government. In fact, I am an advisor to a company which is basically S to G. The company is called Digitaro. And use technology at every possible location in governance. So that will make your job very simple and agile. I have always believed in anytime, anywhere government. It doesn't matter where you are. I used to be, wherever I used to be, I never stopped file movement. It will just go on. When I was in Germany, wherever travel, everywhere in the world I've traveled, not 1 second my file has stopped. That's because we used ERPs. But ERP is only, so what happens is, please understand, let me take 1 minute on this, because Aditya's question is much more deep. See, there are only 3 things that we do in government. One is policy, formulation of policy, right? When you come to, so this is policy formulation. Second is policy implementation. How does it happen? Through what is called file movement. And actual implementation happens through what is called service delivery. Correct? Now, tell me anything beyond this is happening in government? No. There is a policy. That policy gets converted into action through what's called files. And that because of that file movement, there's something called service delivery. Now, what governments are trying to do is make the service delivery fast. But my point is your file is not moving fast, right? So if you look at your government, an average time for a file to reach a finality in terms of government order is something like 3 months. According to me, this can be between 3 hours to 3 days, not more than that. Because, you know, anybody can be anywhere. The chief minister can be anywhere. You know, how does a file move? You know, there's a particular project that HOD has devised. HOD will send it to Secretariat. I will send it to Finance Department. Finance Department will say with modifications, yes, come back. Then in Secretariat, what we do, we'll do what's called a circulation note. The circulation note will go from IT Secretary to maybe then Finance Secretary, then Law Secretary, then Chief Secretary, then the IT Minister, then the CM. This is the route. And then it has to come back through these routes, same route. It has to come back to me. This takes something like 3 months, average 3 months. Now, my point is, if my country has to be better than China, we are at 9% growth. China is doing 14%. How can we do a level jumping? The level jumping can be only by level jumping decisions. The decisions have to be like this at the speed of thought. This is why we are behind China. China's decisions are much more easier because they don't follow governance or they don't have democracy. We have to follow a lot of consensus. We have to consult people. They have to have a lot of opposition, etc. Good. But finally, the whole governance depends on this file movement. And unfortunately, the file movement, like Mr. Yadav asked me, is different in different states. And because of that speed, the speed of governance also gets pulled down. So agile governance is when you use technology, and not only you, at every level, people are able to use technology. And if you can bring a lot of dose of emerging technologies, nothing like it. You can bring blockchain, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, about machine learning, IoT, drones. Did I answer your question, Aditya?
Yes, sir. Thank
you.
You.
Sir, that was very inspiring, sir, about your child labor eradication. Comment, please.
Yeah. You want to hear about that? No.
Sir, it would be very much useful for us, sir.
See, I was the first IAS officer appointed anywhere in the country exclusively for child labor. I came back from London School of Economics and I was posted in what is called the State Child Labor Rehabilitation Society. I created a society. And then when I went to Delhi, they were talking about tracking and all. And just 3 days afterward, you know, to track child labor and all. So I went back and I created a software for tracking. But nobody was very impressed. They said, no, it's very difficult to do, etc. Then I thought, okay, what is happening here? It's very difficult. Then I went as district collector of Krishnagiri. And, you know, the whole data for the whole state given when I was in the Child Labor Society, that there are 70,000 children out of, who are child laborers or out of school. But when I went to the district, I found there are more than 10,000 out of school children in my district alone. So you can imagine if there are 30 districts, there will be 3 lakh plus children who are not going to school. So my dictate, and there are different departments. This is a problem in governance. Essential problem in governance. You know, there's a NCLP, National Child Labor Project. So that's being done by one society called CLASS. In Tamil Nadu, it's called CLASS Society. Then there is SSA, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Then there's a school education department. All, you know, they'll come to me and tell me different things. So what I did was I brought them all together. I said my only condition is the poorest child should be in the class. No child should drop out. Quality and all you take care. I am worried more about quantity. So I created a movement and that was based on a particular software that I developed on telephone. It's called www. It's not working anymore. Back to school.in. This was a software there my friend developed on telephone based on my inputs. So we appointed, so in Tamil Nadu, we have, SC village, BC village, OC village, tribal village, all in one area, but they'll be separate hamlets. So if there are 10 hamlets, I took one boy and one girl above the age of 18 as my volunteers. So if there are 10 hamlets, I had 20. I converted them into what's called a youth group under Women's Development Corporation, so that they get some assistance, so that they'll be together. Then with the help of UNICEF funds, it's our personal initiative. So I had to hunt for funds and all. So through UNICEF, I got 10 lakhs and trained all of these volunteers in 3 things. My favorite areas were this. I'm talking about 2006. One was on sanitation. I wanted a toilet in every house. Second was on literacy, especially women literacy. Third was on first aid. And fourth was on out of school children. So I had 10,000 volunteers in hand. Can you believe it? I was the most powerful collector, because for each 20 member group, which is a village volunteer force, I had 377 panchayats. I had 377 into 20, average of 20. That many volunteers. It will be average, it will be around 15 to 20. Now, the point is, for each group, I had one link volunteer. I created this. Then I also created something called a panchayat level convergence committee. There are 10 people in the village panchayat who don't talk to each other. I am talking about Tamil Nadu. This became institutionalized actually. The UNICEF spent 4 crores studying this. There is a panchayat president. There is a panchayat assistant. There's a village health nurse, village administrative officer, Anganwadi worker, headmaster. Then there will be an NGO. Then there's a link volunteer. I brought them all together. And I said that on the first Friday of every month at 11 a.m., thou shalt meet. First Friday at 11 a.m., at the head of the panchayat president, all these 10 people will meet. And I would send 377 observers to this meeting with 377 agenda points from my side. And they can add to the agenda. But my agenda I will put there. And at the end of this 1 hour meeting, they had to come out with 377 minutes of the meeting. And by evening, I will have a book in hand with 377 papers. It's a very interesting idea. And there also I put women's literacy, sanitation, out of school children, first aid. No, you won't believe it. It's one of the most brilliant things which happened, because the village health nurse, the moment a child is born, she has to report the commissioner of birth and death, who is the village administrative officer. But because they don't talk to each other, sometimes this guy will not register it. And after 20 days, the Tahsildar has to decide. Now, if it gets delayed at Tahsildar office for 6 months, it goes to the court to decide the date of birth of the child. Now, in my district, there was zero this thing. The village health nurse will just say, sir, to the VAO, sir, please do this, and it will be done. Now, this is what I call it institutionalizing. But at the same time, this is an innovation. I brought 10 people together who would not meet otherwise, because they are from different departments. Now, the panchayat president thinks he's from the rural development department, whereas he has to deal with all the departments in the world. The village administrative officer thinks he's from the revenue department. The Anganwadi worker thinks he's or she's from the social welfare department. Now, this is the problem in governance. This is something which I want you to address when you address the what is it called, interview. These are the ways in which you can think. So the VVF plus the panchayat level convergence committee ensure that no child is outside. And entire requirements were placed through the software back to school.in. And if you think that decisions were taken in days, it was taken in hours. Because the district collector is the most powerful human being in the world. And especially a district collector in Tamil Nadu. So what I do, if this child is not in the poverty line, I'll ensure that they are in the poverty line. I'll ensure that they get their 2 cents. I'll ensure that they get their house. under the Indira Awas Yojana. I'll ensure that the bus stops there. I'll ensure that the children get the school textbooks. I'll ensure that my volunteers take them to school for a few days. I'll ensure that they are mentored inside the school through what's called the school volunteer force, which I wanted to create, but I was not, I could not do because I wanted to mentor them. Now, if a district collector can do this, I think everybody can do this because it's based on certain convictions. Our country can improve only, currently the country is traveling in 2-3 national highways. There's a fast national lane, there's a medium national lane, and there's a slow national lane. So we need to bring it all together. Then only the country can improve. The country cannot improve because this is growing. This will grow automatically. There will be growth here, but we have to engender growth here. That's why we are all being recruited. IAS officers are recruited to be heavily biased to this section of the population. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you're not biased here or not biased here. Obviously, they are there, but they can take care of themselves. These are the sectors, and who asked that question about this being an interesting topic. I believe that education and health, if we can give world-class education, world-class health to our people, which is very possible. One of my friends, he's an IAS officer. He was a secretary to CM Tripura. His name is Dr. Sabahat Hazim. He came out with a concept called local. You can go and look at local hospitals, global plus local. Recently, he went to the US Stock Exchange to ring the bell. Right? Can you imagine that? An IAS officer is dropping out as a doctor. He dropped out of the IAS. Then he created Local. Local has become a big brand now with a lot of valuation. The point he's trying to make is we can have a world-class hospital at the village panchayat level. Now, you look at the pandemic. Because we didn't create adequate infrastructure or manpower at the different levels, today we are having different approaches in different states. So the investment. So one of the states which is, benefiting out of this investment is Kerala, because they invested heavily in social sectors, health, education, and sanitation. This is a huge area, and today now they are able to look at the market there. They went to the London Stock Exchange, rang the bell there, the chief minister was there, etc. How? Because they know that the lowest portion has been taken care of from a basic needs perspective. All they need now is advancement and their aspirations. So basically, what we should do is increase aspirations. We should make our society very aspirational. Kahan aisa kuch nahi hoga, aisa hum aisa hi hain, aisa hi rahega, aisa hi marenge, is what people say. That's where we need to make a change. And that's where young officers like you can make brilliant advances. If I could do it, so many years back, I can imagine all of you going with this technology minds, going there with a single-minded purpose of serving people and no personal agenda. Take it from me. Around 200 of you are there now. And many of you will end up as IAS officers. Many of you will end up in different sectors. I'm sure, 100% sure. I want all of you to qualify and be up there. The point is, the system is not making you an IAS officer so that you can look good in front of society. The system is making you an IAS officer so that you can take care of our people, right? And there are only 150 IAS officers being selected for the whole country, for a population of 1.5 billion. So you should imagine that you are a chosen few.
Sir, are you writing somewhere?
Pardon?
Are you writing in the...
Yeah, I was writing something. Did you see it?
No, sir, we are not able to see. Sir.
Oh, you're not able to see it? Oh my God, I was writing and writing and writing so much. Goodness gracious. So I didn't share the screen. Oh my God, I'm sorry. No time for that. Anyways, always rubbish. Just forget it. A lot of rubbish. Okay. Anything else?
Sir, your final message to the students, sir.
Final message. You're all brilliant people. You've done your prelims, you've done your mains. You're looking forward to your interview. My request will be, time is of essence. Don't waste time. That's one. You should sleep 7 hours. Wake up at 5, sleep at 10. When you sleep, take a autobiography with you. Preferably Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, Swami Vivekananda, Nehru, Gandhiji, then any of the other biographies that you can read. So biographies are very, very important because it's inspiring, it's anecdotal, it is historical, right? So that's one. Second is, if it's possible, please listen to one TED talk per day. So if you have 45 days, you can listen to 45 TED talks. Each TED talk is 18 minutes, less than 18 minutes. It's there available as an app on your smartphone. Number 3, drink a lot of water, which I don't do myself. My wife is looking at me and saying, you're a doctor. Doctor, heal thyself, is what she's saying. But drink a lot of water. Be positive throughout. Never ever talk a negative word in the interview. In your own mind, think that you're going to be an IAS officer. So IAS officers are leaders by choice, by default. So when you go up there, when you go into the room, there should be a whiff, there should be a feel of a whiff of fresh air. So this person is coming in with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas. Number 3, look at the websites of the Government of India.
9,
And
10,
the current events. Look at the world map. Look at the hotspots. Be aware of you've done all this in your prelims, general studies, and the mains general studies. I'm sure you've done all this. But understand the nuances of it. For example, what is Quad? QAAD. What is our Quad policy? What is our China policy? What is our policy insofar as now Jammu Kashmir is concerned? Why is India governmenting? So the nuanced answers are very, very critical for the interview. So you have enough time, 45 days. Do a lot of mock interviews. It will increase your confidence. If you're having a lot of, if you're a little plump, do a lot of exercise. I would suggest you spend 2 hours, 1 hour running, 1 hour on yoga and pranayama. Seriously, I'm telling you this. Become slim and fit. Even others who are slim and fit also, please ensure that you are fit and agile, as Aditi said. Then what can I say? So read books, read the newspaper, read to BBC. Please listen to BBC while you're running. 2 things can happen. Aerobics can happen. Your BBC radio can happen. So listen to BBC. It gives you a roundup of the world as you run. The nuances of policy shifts. For example, we used to be pro-Palestine at some point of time. Now we are pro-Israel. So we have to understand the progress of that policy, shift of that policy. It's not been a sudden shift. It's been a very subtle shift in a sense. So we need to understand that. Understand your local problems. Your DAF is very, very important. What you have written in your DAF about your hobby, about what you did in college, what is the research, what are your talents, all those things. So DAF, I think people, the fairly senior officers sitting there, most of the questions, obviously, you would have to know things come from a DAF. In a sense, you are prepared for it. But there are questions. See, for example, in 1993, 94, same board, I went to the same boards. First question was, being an MBBS doctor, why are you wasting government's money? Is the question. So I went round and round about it, but they were not convinced. I got very poor marks in that. Second time was, again, one of the questions asked was, no, this is a very biased question, I felt. One of the questions was, do you think Kashmiri terrorism can come to Kerala from where I am? So my answer was, is it because of the people who are selling, Kashmiri people who are selling Pashmina shawls, etc. in Kovalam? He said, yes, yes, yes. But, that was I thought that was not a right question to be asked. But then, somebody's asking the question. But then you should be very situational. You should be situationally aware. What is the intent? So the question is, what is the intention or intent behind the question? Is it a very straightforward question? or is there something behind? So your answers have to be nuanced. And as the question comes, listen very, very carefully, look into the eyes and try to understand the question. And in the interview, there's no right and wrong answer. It's about your personality that's being. So always have a smile, be positive. However you are, provoked, don't get provoked, because that's a very bad sign of your personality. Prepare yourself for that, because you can get provoked. It can become very personal. Please understand, because the boards are completely autonomous. Nobody has control over the board. So it's up to the chairman. But 95% of the boards they will put you at ease, right? They'll give you good marks also. So then your question is, how good was your mains? So I hope all of you have written your mains well. And the interviews. And you ask me short questions, I give you long rambling answers. Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll stop here. Puminathan and Madhavi and my dear students, my dear aspirants. I'm very happy to meet all of you. Some of you I've seen on your face, but I can hear the heartbeats happen, because you are between 22 and 31 or 35. You are young things, a lot of dreams in your mind, in your hearts, and never let the dream go away, whatever be the outcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it's information plus inspiration also, sir. And the way you saw the speak was like a speaker. I think we are getting APJ Abdul Kalam. Thank you, sir.
That's the biggest. Yeah, that's my biggest.
Sir, excellent session, sir. Not only a lot of information, but also very, very interesting session. And the final message is really unforgettable message, sir. I'm sure all our students would have been benefited so much, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time and inputs. And our request Aditya to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that opportunity, sir. Sir, I would say that the section was so much informative, so insightful, and it actually kindles our brain what we are going to do the next. Whether we are getting selected or not is the next, but the session was very much useful for us, sir. I really wanted to thank you for that. And I would like to thank Bhuminathan sir and Madhavi ma'am for coordinating such a wonderful session. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aditya. My privilege speaking to youngsters like you. It's always, energy, racing. It gives me a lot of energy, and you can become passionate because you're dealing with young things. You're the dream citizens of India. And I'm sure all of you are going to do yourself proud and your parents proud and their country proud. The first thing is getting selected. The second thing is to do great things for your country, because the country demands that. That's the thing that should drive you. Nothing else should. The passion to serve this country. Otherwise, many of you are from the private sector. You could have earned in lakhs and millions, but you've not chosen that and you come here. Is because you want to do something different for the country, and you want to see India really on top, with the US and Singapore and Switzerland. And that's always been my passion. And always think world class, chase excellence. God bless. Thank you, Aditya, and thank you, Bhuminathan. Thank you, Madhavi. Thank you all of you. God bless. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Friends, now we are almost we have ended the session, and let us meet with the different topics tomorrow, and the schedule and the chief guest will be shared with you in the Telegram channel. Thank you so much for your participation. So once again, on behalf of the Academy,
thanks for the opportunity, Bhuminathan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Good day. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, this is a tomorrow session, challenges to internal security, and I hope madam would have shared with you. Otherwise, we will share in the Telegram channel. Now, since because the time is up, we will wind up the session. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madhavi. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you, students. It's wonderful having you. Thank you for your cooperation.